lies about suicides.
President Trump declared 3 weeks ago that his administration would be reviewing the security clearances of 6 intelligence officials who have escaped consequences for misdeeds. Mr. Trump following through with his promise. The list has grown. The Trump administration today announcing it is reviewing clearances for the following 9 deep state actors: former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director Michael Hayden, former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, fired FBI Director Andrew McCabe, and disgraced FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, top DOJ official Bruce Orr. One would think, and many have thought, that being fired or serving in a previous administration might be just enough to automatically end any security clearance. But this club, this exclusive club, has maintained a high level of tenacity for their prerogatives despite blatant bias, disloyalty, and assaults on the president. Joining us now, Victoria Tensing, Joe DeGeneva, the founding partner, Geneva and Tensing Law Firm. It's great to have you with us, and let's start with Strzok being fired. It now means that the top of the FBI has certifiably been fired and moved on, demoted for actions that are just outside the responsibilities of their office and assaulting this president in point of fact. Victoria, your thoughts on what we have now witnessed at the FBI?
Well, it was well-deserved, Lou. I mean, there's a thing in the law called res ipsa loquitur, and it means the thing speaks for itself, so the patient doesn't have to show negligence if the scissors are still in after the operation. Well, look at what we have from Strzok. We have his vile animus expressed in all his texts. We have him declaring in his text that he has a plan to stop Trump, and then
what happened to her client and the Iranian One stuff? We haven't heard anything about that.
Counterintelligence investigation based on this dossier that's been discredited, paid for by the Democrats. The thing speaks for itself. We don't need to go into any more angst about his motives. They're there, right there.
Joe, the clearance today being revoked for John Brennan.
Yes.
Do you have any objections, or do you think perhaps there should be far more Obama officials who will have their security clearances lifted?
This is a glorious moment for the country. An evil man has lost something that he's not entitled to. John Brennan is the worst CIA director in the history of this country. He betrayed his country by means of the plot against President Trump, which he was the leader of, involving Comey and Yates and others, Strzok, Page, all of the people at the FBI. And let's remember, Lou, everybody that was on the list of 9 that you gave should have their clearances revoked. And I hope that the revocation of Brennan's clearance today is a signal that they are starting to move toward the declassification of all the documents that we want to see to show just how corrupt the Obama FBI and DOJ really were.
You're saying that you believe the White House is moving on that request now?
I believe that very sincerely. I know that this has been under consideration for some time, and the fact that they revoked John Brennan's clearance today, to me, is a sign that they are now moving toward the realization that as a public duty, they must declassify all of those documents so that the American people can see exactly the array of evil people who were lined up against this president, both as a candidate, as an interregnum, and finally after his inauguration. This is the greatest law enforcement, intelligence, and political scandal in the history of this country, and it needs to be fully exposed.
And they should also declassify all the FBI texts that were at issue, McCabe's and all of Strzok's, and also Bruce Orr's. We want to know a lot more about Bruce Orr.
And now with the firing of Strzok and this declassification that's underway, and frankly, I will be amongst those cheering loudly, because this administration has both the opportunity to be the most open and transparent in American history. It also has the opportunity to advance the cause of justice and bring consequence and punishment to evildoers, as you say. To look at Mark Warner, Senator Warner, his reaction today, and I'd like to just read this, share this with our audience, if we could put that up. I guess to me, this had an eerie memory of an enemies list. Smacks of Nixonian-type practices of trying to silence anyone that is willing to criticize the president. That puts us again in uncharted territory, said the illustrious vice chair who's been running the Senate Intelligence Committee.
That's not English,
because
is it that? Is it this?
Richard
Make up
Burr,
your
the
mind.
Republican chairman, abdicated. Your reaction?
Well, Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia, is basically an adolescent. You will recall that recently at a fundraiser cocktail party, he got a little drunk and started saying he had all kinds of secrets that if he wanted to, he could release and really embarrass the president. That shows you the kind of juvenile mind that sits in the head of Mark Warner. His performance as a United States Senator is not only awkward and unseemly, it's an embarrassment to the United States Senate, and he has brought ill repute upon the Senate by his drunken statements at that party.
He's also got a bad memory. Did he forget about the Clinton enemies list? What happened to that, and why didn't he mention that?
Yeah. Well, he's nothing if not a swamp creature of convenience, I think we can say.
Indeed.
And it's easy for him, perhaps, to put out of his mind, but there's the rest of us can't.
Of the CIA abusing his power to his new job. He's now paid by a so-called news agency, Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, so-called news channel. He continues to peddle all this propaganda and misinformation and disinformation.
Hashtag MSNBC.
Take a look at the conduct from a former so-called nonpartisan CIA director who once had his fingers on every American secret we have. Watch this.
Donald Trump has badly sullied the reputation of the office of the presidency with his invective, with his constant disregard, I think, for human decency. He is, I think, the most divisive president we've ever had in the Oval Office. He is feeding and fueling hatred and animosity and misunderstandings among Americans. I think there's a big question, first of all, in terms of those who are on Mr. Trump's national security team, whether they can continue to serve in good conscience an individual who basically betrayed his nation. What Mr. Trump did yesterday was to betray the women and men of the FBI, the CIA, NSA, and others, and to betray the American public. And that's why I use the term that this is nothing short of treasonous. I think he's afraid of the president of Russia. Why? Well, I think one can speculate as to why. That the Russians may have something on him personally, that they could always roll out and make his life more difficult. Mr. Trump continues to have his ignorance of the facts, a willful disregard of them, again, just to follow through on these campaign promises that really were very flawed. I and so many other former national security officials are speaking out because of the abnormal and aberrant behavior of Mr. Trump. This is a very large and painful national kidney stone. The relief we feel afterward is going to be just exhilarating.
Now, for anybody that thinks that that man, that Trump-hating partisan, MSNBC hack, should have a security clearance, let me make this very simple and easy to understand. And by the way, I'll read to you from the official CIA rules. And by the way, all of you biased hacks in the media, you need to do your jobs. You need to tell your audiences the truth, what the rules of the CIA are. Quote, in the case of former directors, the agency holds their security clearance and renews it every 5 years for the rest of their lives. However, that requires former CIA directors to behave like current CIA employees. So is what you saw, is that, a man demeaning a sitting president of the United States on a daily basis on national TV? Is that acceptable behavior for a sitting member of the CIA? Of course not.